Hi, folks. Welcome to our latest Progress Texas Happy Hour. I'm Tara Pohlmeyer, our Communications Director, and I'm here with Texas Representative Jean Wu. Representative Wu, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. What is keeping you grounded right now as we navigate everything that we're navigating as a state and as a country?
Well, I mean, for me personally, I've actually really enjoyed spending a lot more time with my family. Since all this has happened, I've had the responsibility of making dinner almost every single night. So it's I don't mean to make light of things. That I know times have been tough, but I frankly have really enjoyed being able to spend more time with my family, not having to go do a lot of dinners and stuff like that out. And I think my cooking chops have really come up. Hey, shh. And I have my little one screaming at me right now.
That's amazing. Are there any dishes that your kids have a new favorite of or anything like that?
I think I am very fortunate that our children eat everything, including vegetables, we've been working very hard to make sure that they're okay with. I don't know, but my kids, they'll eat everything, but they love their meat. Actually, it's something that not I don't make this, but our kids, their absolute favorite thing is barbacoa street tacos. Um,
Oh,
we fortunately live in a part of town where there's a taco truck on every corner, which I know was a promise that was made in 2016 for the election, but it's actually already happened here in Southwest Houston. And my kids will scream at me in the morning every once in a while and say, "Hey, we want tacos this morning," and I have to go drive out at like 7 o'clock in the morning, go find street tacos, and bring them back. And they will devour those. I think this last time I brought back tacos, and my 6-year-old just didn't even ask. He just grabbed the entire plate by himself, like 3 tacos that were meant to be shared with other people, and he just took and he just went off with them. And we're like,
that's amazing.
and it's ridiculous.
That sounds like a good problem to have. So you were first elected to the Texas legislature in 2012, correct? And your campaign, I'm assuming, has changed, and like your work has changed too during COVID. Can you tell us a little bit about what that transition has been like?
Actually, we our district was almost built for the COVID-19 sort of like crisis because we have one of the largest, if not the single largest population of apartment dwellers, apartment renters, and apartment voters in the entire state. We are the smallest geographic district because of our population density. We are 73% apartment multifamily units in the district. So there's not apartments. Anybody who's done campaigning knows that apartments you can't really knock, you can't really get people out the door, and we've sort of built a campaign around that. So we focus on GOTV, we focus on registration, and we don't try to do a lot of like person-to-person persuasion. And now the rest of the state and the rest of the nation is figuring out how to do basically what we've been doing. In fact, our apartment program that we've been running, that I ran for past almost 10 years, that my predecessor, Scott Hochberg, ran for like 20 years, and that his predecessor, Paul Colbert, ran for like another 10 years, we're now kicking that out statewide. In fact, our program is now officially a part of the Texas Democratic Party. And if you want to volunteer with the Texas Democratic Party to help work on apartment voters, this is a core group of Democratic progressive voters who have been largely ignored because they're hard, because it's hard to talk to people in apartments, because it's hard to engage people in apartments. And our response in the past has been, well, screw it, we won't do anything. And we're saying, hey, these are our voters, these are our constituents, these are our people. We need to make an effort to reach out to them, to make sure they're registered correctly, make sure they get out the vote at the right time, in the right location. If you want to be part of that, come hit us up.
That is amazing. As someone who has lived in apartments for,
Yep.
most of my time here in Austin, like that is so needed and so important. I love that. I want to invite folks who are just tuning in, please drop comments or questions in the comment section. We'd love to hear them and answer them for y'all. I'm curious, Representative Wu, what are you seeing needed in your community right now, and how are you connecting folks with resources during COVID and also as we gear up for this election in November?
So right now, I'm probably the absolute most tense about what's happening on Capitol Hill right now. As we just said, I have one of the largest group of apartment populations in the whole state, and frankly, a lot of them are going to be evicted soon. Fortunately, we have a lot of JPs and apartment owners here who are being very conscientious about it. They're trying to be lenient, be forgiving about it, but still, we're talking about tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of families across the state, if not more, who are on the either up for eviction or on the verge of eviction. And we really need Congress and the federal government to step up. For this entire period, I have called for the governor to call for a special session. We've got like $15 billion sitting in the rainy day fund. We don't need all of it. Just need a sliver, a small slice, instead of just giving it away to Governor Abbott's little buddies. We've spent, you saw the news, we dumped $295 million into a, pat on the back, good buddy contract to do contact tracing that's done nothing. They're not doing anything. And we could have used that money to help people in apartments, which would have gone a long ways to making sure that we don't spread the virus. Because, if people are forced into shelters, if people are forced into on the street, that makes the virus, makes the epidemic so much worse.
100%. And I know that you, along with a lot of other legislatures, penned a letter to the Texas Supreme Court asking them to halt evictions as well in Texas during the pandemic. Have you gotten a response from that? What are the updates on that effort?
Unfortunately, after our first letter, when the Supreme Court did pause it, there's been no response from the Supreme Court or the governor or anyone else that's in charge. The unfortunate thing is, and I don't want to make this too partisan, but the unfortunate thing is that the Republican leadership of the state is all on board Team Trump, and that is, let's reopen everything at any cost, and let's just go. Let's just pretend there's nothing's going to go wrong. Let's pretend that there's nothing happening. Let's pretend we're set for this and we're ready for this, and just go, because we got to make Trump look good. And that is the unfortunate thing, and all the way. And I think that applies not only in our state government, in the executive and legislative branch, but also in our judicial branch.
Absolutely. And we've seen even one of our current Texas Supreme Court justices, refusing to retire before a specific deadline so that Texans will be able to actually elect his replacement, and instead, waiting 1 week, just a week, so that he can retire. So yeah, we've got some things to do in our judicial system as well.
Absolutely.
You've talked a little bit about how our GOP leadership here in Texas is just kind of blindly following Trump. And I think that is also true when it comes to Trump's attacks on Asian Americans and how that affects us here in Texas. Can you talk a little bit about the impact of that, especially in your district, and how can we ensure Texas is a welcoming place for all Texans?
Yeah, so this is a tough topic, and not just for as a representative of the Asian American community, but as a representative of any minority community. That the unfortunate thing is the Trump's attacks on the Asian American community and subsequent Republican attacks on the Asian American community are not new. That this has been going on since before Trump, but Trump has made it so much worse from the moment that he came down those stupid escalators and said that Mexicans were rapists and drug dealers, and talked about the Muslim ban, talked about building the wall, talked about all these things up and down. Those were all, not even so much coding. There was those just naked attacks on communities to remind his, white supremacy base that they're the superior group, that they're the ones who should be in charge, that all these people who are here, who are in minority communities, who are immigrant communities, who are in religious minorities, those are people who are causing all the problems in this country. And for a while, Asian Americans sort of said, this is not good, but at least he's not coming after us. And I think for a lot of people, a lot of Asian Americans who probably supported Trump suddenly realized, in our eyes, we're just, in their eyes, we're just as worthless. And, and it was just only a matter of time until he attacked us. And I think everyone in the community now sees Trump for what he is. And that, the racism and the bigotry, it's not any different. It's not any different than it was when it was directed toward Hispanics, toward African American community, toward Muslim Americans, toward LGBT community. It's the same hate. They just change the names every once in a while. And what we need to say in November is that we are united as a community, we are united as a people, and that Asian Americans are going to support African Americans, African Americans are going to support LGBT are going to support Hispanic Americans, and so on and so forth. That we are together as one people, and we will push back against hate. We will fight for a country that represents what we believe America to be. That is a land of opportunity. That is a land of equality. That is a land of justice and freedom. And we will not let one orange man destroy what we believe is the American dream.
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing your thoughts on that. I'm curious if you have seen folks in your community or folks across Texas maybe reach out about this topic in particular when we hear, Republicans like John Cornyn or Dan Patrick kind of repeat a lot of this rhetoric.
Yep. And I've heard about, I know especially in the Chinese American community, but it's not just Chinese. One of the things I really wanted to emphasize as I talk to many different places and many different people about this is that this is an attack on all Asian Americans. But just because Trump only says Chinese, it doesn't make a difference because, I say the average person here in America doesn't know the difference between Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, Korean, or anyone else. You look Asian. Hell, the family that was almost murdered in Odessa were Burmese. And if you ask Asian Americans, hey, do Burmese look Chinese? Nobody would say yes. It's like they look nothing like Chinese. But they were attacked because they had an Asian look. And that's all it takes. And just ask Hispanic Americans whether or not it matters if they're from Mexico or Peru. It doesn't. As long as you look Hispanic, then you receive the same hate. And what many, many Asian Republicans have said to me was this. They have gone to their Republican leaders, people that they voted for, people that they donated money for, donated money to, and people that they helped campaign for, and say, hey, stop this. This is not okay. This is bad for our community. This is bad for my family's personal safety. And their response for a long time was just a shrug, like, oh, well, sorry, you got in Trump's crosshairs. And and the frustration that's coming back to me is, we've spent so much time, money, and effort helping these Republicans. And all we ask for them is to not put our lives in danger. You can go talk about China all you want. And I've been one of the people who said, look, I think China is wrong on a lot of things. I think they're wrong for all the way from Hong Kong to Tibet, to the way they treat the Uyghurs, all the way to the way they deal with Taiwan, everything. I'm happy to say that. But you know what? You don't get to pin that on Chinese Americans. You don't get to pin that on Asian Americans. We're no more responsible for what happens in China than Trump is responsible for what happens in Latvia. You know, but they and even over the last 4 years, I cannot tell you how many Asian Americans, I mean, donor class Asian Americans have come up to me and said, like, I can't be Republican anymore. If Trump is what it means to be Republican, count me out. Because I'm an immigrant. I believe in science. I believe in X, Y, and Z. And I believe in basic dignity for our country. This is not it. And if you have other Republicans who won't even stand up to Trump when he says just ungodly things about our community, then screw that.
We have a question here from Roxy, and she is asking, as a Black woman, how can she reach out to the AAPI community and promote that we all have common ground in this election and in the upcoming census as well, which if anyone hasn't filled out the census, please do.
No, that's a fantastic question. And I've gotten the question the same way from the other direction. Asian American community members wanted to reach out, how to reach out to the African American community. Look, let's be completely honest. Ever since the Rodney King LA riot days, our communities have never been fully right with each other. And this is an honest assessment. The Asian American community and the African American community have been used against each other. And one of the things, if you have, I don't have enough time to talk about it in depth, but look up the myth of the model minority. And that is to tell the Asian, that is a stereotype, a racist stereotype, telling Asian Americans, hey, you guys are the good minorities. You guys are the good ones. You work so hard and you stay so quiet. You never say anything. You're never loud and you don't complain. And see all those Black people, they're always complaining about civil rights and how they were mistreated and all these things. You guys never do that. And they play that against the community and remind the community that every time the Asian community comes out and says, hey, we're not okay with this. This is wrong. And they remind Asian Americans, oh, you just need to keep your mouth shut and be the good, the model minority. And they play that against us. They play and use that against the African American community and use it against the Hispanic community. And it's time we put an end to that because it silences both our communities. And I'm sick of it. I think if you want to reach out and it'll take baby steps because it will be hard to undo literally decades upon decades of this targeted racial oppression on both sides. What we need to do is realize that we do have a common enemy, and that enemy is racism. And that no matter what form it comes in, no matter how it's couched, how it's nicely packaged and sold to us, we must reject it. I think one of the basic things is if you want to build this bridge, talk. I think the most basic thing that any human being can do is talk to another human being. And I cannot tell you how important that is as a legislator who has to work with other people who have different views and different ideas. Just sit down and talk to somebody. Let them know who you are. Share families about your story. Share stories about your family with them. And just let them know that you're a human being. And then share stories from your community and let them know what life is like with you. And they'll share stories of what life is like with them. I bet you there's a lot of commonalities between hard work in the African American community, hard work in the Asian American community, and the struggles that we go through. And I always say, like, the discrimination for each side is different. And it comes up in different ways, but it's the same type of racism. It's the same type of hate. And what we need to do is understand that our enemy is not each other. Our enemy is hate. And we have to fight it. And share each other's stories, get to know each other. The best way to end racism, to end stereotypes, is to let people know that you're not a stereotype, that you have other dimensions, that what you believed about someone can be dispelled by just knowing them, talking to them, and realizing the truth. Oh, and and tell each and be vocal about telling each other that you care about their issues. And that's one thing I've been pushing the Asian American community to do is like, look, you're under attack. But when other communities were under attack, what did you say? You said nothing. And I said, like, look, if you want to change that, then come out and vocally say, I think this is wrong, and we support the community, and just be public about it.
Thank you, Representative. You're getting a lot of love in the comments as well.
Wow.
I want to shift gears a little bit. I know you're a father of.
Make sure you have a drink.
Please, yes. I want to shift gears a little bit. I know you're a father. What is on parents' mind a lot right now is schools reopening or not reopening, and really, what do you see as the path forward here? You know, the governor has gone back and forth on this when it comes to like putting the power up to local superintendents or school boards. I mean, what are you seeing in Houston? How can the state move forward and protect all folks involved, including parents, children, and teachers and staff?
And this is I've been sighing a lot during this conversation, but it's really hard not to sigh a lot. I kind of feel like, you ever driven late at night and you see a car on the road and they're kind of being a little sporadic, they're kind of weaving back and forth, getting a little too close to other cars, and you're like, oh crap, that guy's drunk, and you're just following them, and you call 911, say, hey, I'm following this car, they're acting really weird, I think they're intoxicated, they're going to cause an accident, you better get a cop out here, and the operator says, just stay behind them and follow them, and you kind of like know, okay, this is bad, they're about to go off, no, you know something bad is going to happen, you're just not exactly sure when, and you know that this is a bad idea, but you just can't say exactly how it's going to happen or when it's going to happen, but you know this is not good. And this is what watching the Trump administration and state Republicans deal with the coronavirus, that's what it feels like. Like every step they take, you're saying to yourself, oh, that's not good. That's not good. You shouldn't do that. That's a little too close. And we keep coming closer and closer. From all the way from like opening bars, despite despite other countries saying, hey, when we reopened, our new cases all came from bars and parties, but we did it anyways. And and other countries said we opened schools, and that's where the new cases were, because kids are not really good about maintaining COVID-19 conditions. And you're just watching them do all these things that in your back of your mind, you're like, that's not a good idea. That's really a bad risk. But they haven't crashed yet, but they're going to, and that's what scares me. And I'm not putting my kids back in school. You know what? The answer is always this: kids can catch up. I can't bring my parents back from the dead, and that's the flat of it. I can't bring my parents back if they get it. My parents are all in their 70s. They love their grandbabies, and I want them to be able to be around my kids, for another 10, 20 years at least. And at someday my parents are going to pass, and I know that, but I don't want them to die for something that I could prevent, and that's the flat of it. That's the simple truth of it. I have nothing else to say other than I know kids may not die as frequently and get sick very severely, but I know that the fatality rate for the over 65 crowd is very, very high. Even if it's as low as they say, that it's about 1.8% of people who get it pass away. You think about that. 1.8, that's 1 out of 50, basically. So imagine taking a plane trip once a year, and they tell you that 1 out of 50 planes will drop out of the air. Are you going to go fly? And, I know what my answer is.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to shift a little bit. I know there are a lot of issues on people's minds as we gear up for November. It could be schools, it could be police violence, it could be healthcare. But the way we vote is also kind of, up for discussion right now. And so Dave here had a question about vote by mail, which at Progress Texas, we believe should be expanded to 100% no excuse vote by mail as soon as possible for November. But his question is, what can be done in the case of mail-in ballots if Trump's handpicked postmaster does his bidding? So there's a lot of misinformation about vote by mail. What do you think about the whole process?
The irony in Texas, vote by mail overwhelmingly benefits Republicans. And there's been so many things that I don't think they necessarily. I do not think that Trump's people really actually know how things play out and have gamed it all the way out. I really, really think that these are all just Trump's why don't we do this? Why don't we put a nuke in a why can't we just nuke hurricanes? Why don't we drink, can we try spraying bleach on ourselves to kill corona? I think these are just half-assed ideas that he has, and people say, okay, we're going with it. And in Texas, vote by mail overwhelmingly benefits Republicans. Overwhelmingly. Because Republican GOP average age of the Republican voter is 20 years older than the average Democrat. It's a lot. Their average age is 65 or something crazy high like that. And you know what? It just boggles my mind for one. Okay, that they're trying this because if somebody were to screw Republican voters the way they've been screwing with the Democratic voters. To do voter suppression, it would be through vote by mail. That would be my guess. But look, the laws governing the post service are written in law. Congress still has oversight of the Postal Service. If the U.S. House wanted to do stuff, they could still do it. I think they can screw around with it a little bit, but I think it's limited. If you're going to vote by mail, vote by mail. Texas is sort of a middle ground in vote by mail applications that you have to have a reason to request one, and you have to be one of the reasons stated in law. But nobody can really check your reason. Nobody checks your reason. If you say that you are unhealthy and can't go, there's no way to disprove that. The only thing that they could prove is you're not over 65. But I would say if you want to vote by mail, look at the qualifications. Look at the qualifications that needed. In Harris County, our election official has stated that lack of immunity to COVID-19 is a medical reason to request a vote by mail. That's enough. That's all you need. The Republicans have objected to it, but too bad, so sad. That's what they've said. If you're not sure, reach out to your voter registrar and ask them. But I would say keep going at it. Whatever you're going to do, make a plan to do it. If you plan to vote by mail, plan to vote by mail. If you plan to vote in person, make a plan to do that. And I really encourage everyone to use early voting and do not wait until election day. As with any major presidential cycle, election day will be bad. Take advantage of early voting as much as you can. If you need to avoid crowds because you have a personal, you want to protect your safety, go in the middle of the week. Go during off-peak hours. So the peak hours would be at the very beginning of the day, right at noon, and in the evening near closing. So if you go in between those spots, you're almost guaranteed to have no line and have not a lot of people there.
Absolutely. Vote safe, vote secure, and vote at home if you can.
And let me add, we've already stated that the Democrats have already stated that if we are in charge, if we flip the House in the Texas legislature, our priorities are going to be to work on a lot of these issues. We're going to change how we do vote by mail. We're going to make it more accessible. We're going to change the way we do it. We've been trying to do online registration for like the entire time I've been in the legislature, and the Republicans have killed it like every single time, and that's going to change.
There's a lot, on the ballot in November and a lot at stake. But what are some of the things that you are looking forward to in the 2021 legislative session that you would like to carry forward?
Yeah. So I want to make sure I say this the right way and don't make people mad about it. But I think George Floyd's death, especially as a local native son of Houston, was incredibly tragic and unnecessary. But if there can be said to be a silver lining in it, if there can be said to be a silver lining in the coronavirus epidemic, it's that it has forced our hand on many of these issues related to criminal justice reform. And I know a lot of people are on the defund the police train. And what I've said to people is, that's a good catchphrase, but a lot of the reforms that you're looking for is not about defunding the police. It's about where that money needs to go instead. So a lot of the social programs, a lot of the programs that help people who are in prison, a lot of the programs that help people with drug addiction, a lot of the programs that help deal with social welfare issues, those are the things that are actually needed to reform our criminal justice system. Those are the things that actually needed to make things better. Just having fewer police doesn't do anything, right? Because people will still be in prison. People will still be being prosecuted for minor drug offenses and all these things. And one thing that has happened because of the pandemic is that our numbers of people in prison have dropped sharply. And I think, a few years ago, we were already steadily dropping for about 140,000 in the state. We're now in the 130s. And it's continuing to drop because we're letting people go that we don't think are a dangerous society and who don't need to be in prison anymore. And we want this to continue because not only does it mean a better society because we don't have people locked up for decades for what are essentially minor offenses for drugs and for whatever else. We can save that money for violent offenders who actually hurt our society and hurt our people. And the people, this is what I always said. People we're disappointed in, we should help them. We should help them get better. People that we're mad at, we should give them a slap on the wrist. People we're scared of, you lock those people up. And that's the thing we need to focus on. And one of the things that I'm going to be pushing forward next session that I was planning to do anyways, but because of a lot of the stuff related to George Floyd, because of stuff related to the pandemic, we're going to work on doing limitations on how long you can sentence people for a drug offense. You should not have people serving life in prison because they have a lifelong drug addiction. We should be working with them to get rid of the drug addiction and helping them solve that instead of spending literally millions of dollars putting them in prison for life. And that is just simply ridiculous. We need to talk a lot about a lot of programs that keep people on probation, give people a second chance. We need to talk about banning the box on applications, putting in qualifiers for state contractors, say like, hey, you need to hire or be willing to hire people with criminal convictions, X, Y, and Z. I want to talk about providing a real system to pardon people who had an offense when they were 18 years old, but now they're in their 40s and they've been a model citizen since then. There should be a way for them to clear their name and have a normal life. And I think people don't understand that it's not just the cops. It's also the prosecutors. It's also the judges. It's also the prisons. and everything else that make our society hurt and make our society not work as well as it should, and not make our society as just as it should be. And I think this is an opportunity. If Democrats take over, we're going to hit these items and hit them hard. Decriminalization of marijuana, reducing penalties for other drug offenses, and moving a lot of those things from a punitive type of action to a more restorative type of action. And I think all those things will work in conjunction to really help our society just be better. And if you're a conservative, if you're a Republican, it'll make government smaller. It'll save us money. It'll save taxpayer money. We can use it, do whatever else you want with it. Do it. You can reduce taxes. You can spend it on God knows what. But let's do this and let's make ourselves better.
Kind of to close us out and wrap us up here, because I know we're a little bit over time, and thank you for joining us. What is something that you are looking forward to right now, kind of outside of politics, maybe?
I actually just moved into a new house. We just built it because my parents are staying with us now, we had planned to have a party, a housewarming party, invite all our friends over, and we've not been able to do that, and we're not going to do that for the foreseeable future. And I really miss having our friends over. I miss having having lots of people, and because my wife and I are both very social, we like throwing parties. We like feeding people a lot. I love to cook. I miss those social interactions, and I really, really look forward to it. I think my wife would say that she looks forward to traveling more than anything else. And I told her there's no way you're getting me on a plane. You're not showing me in a tube full of other people right now. That's just period. Here's what I would say to everybody in closing is, like, look, I know things are tough, but we're tougher, and we're stronger than this, and we're stronger than Trump. And if you don't like the way things are, if you're pissed off and you don't want to take it anymore, then do something about it, right? Go out there and organize, raise money, knock on doors. Well, maybe not knock on doors, but help us make phone calls, help us hang stuff on apartments, help us engage other people. Talk to your friends, talk to your family members. Make sure that they know that they're registered correctly. Make sure they're going to vote. Make sure they know how they're going to vote. And make sure that they know that they're going to need to vote all the way down the ballot and vote for all the Democrats and all the progressives who are on the ballot. And because this is a team effort. This is not, it's taken one man to crash our economy, crash our society, crash our country, but it's going to take all of us working in conjunction to rebuild it. And we can do this together.
Thank you, Representative Wu, for joining us today. Appreciate it so much. And thank you again.
Thank you. Happy hour.